Hi, this is Coach Shawnee Lavender, the Conscious Moms Coach, and I'm excited to be here with you today for this Facebook Live. I'm going to be talking about why is it that we parents actually lose our cool or our temper or our patience, our minds, why we actually do that, as opposed to what most of us think is the reason that we lose it, specifically around when our children misbehave, and I put that in quotes because I really believe our children simply do as they do, and some of it we like and some of it we don't like. I am going to use the word misbehave, though, because that is the common parlance, and when I say it, you all know what I'm talking about. So why am I doing this topic? For a couple of reasons. One, it's something that I'm passionate about and I love to talk about. Two, it's something that I see as being really significant when we have sort of the wrong frame around an issue, that it makes it that it skews the way we look at that issue, it skews the way we address that issue. And so if your frame is wrong, then the way you address it is going to tend to be off as well. And so I really believe in approaching behavior problems in families in certain ways, with a lot of mindfulness and with a certain frame around it that I find is really effective and honors both the parents and the children at the same time, which I think is critical. So I'm also about seismic cultural change. And I see that as critical because even though I think we live in an amazing world, at an amazing time in many respects, I see a lot of things out in the world that are very dysfunctional. And most of them are human initiated. We are very creative, and yet we're also, we have a lot of problems. um, so, so that's my opinion. And so when I see those are things that I say, you know what? I have a 7-year-old daughter. That's not the world that I want her to inherit. I don't want her to inherit a world where people don't know how to communicate with each other. People don't know how to address conflict in a peaceful and solution-oriented way, a respectful way. So to me, then what do I do? Well, I can't change anything out there. So I work on my part. I work with the families I work with around the world to parent in such a way that they are creating that model in their home of respectful ways of being with each other and giving their children the life experience and the skills that they can then take into their lives as they grow and they impact the world in their work and in their craft and in their relationships. So I'm really about seismic cultural change. And so this is part of that because it's going to be focused on beliefs and some fundamental differences between the old ways, which are still the predominant ways of thinking, and they're the unhelpful, unhealthy ways, and the ways that are still emerging. They're not necessarily new ways, so to speak, because these ideas have been around for a long time, and yet they used to be more sort of fringe ideas, or only certain people had these ideas. And so I want to bring more of those into the forefront, into the dominant cultural paradigm versus the fringe. And the other reason that I'm talking about this topic is that when I'm working with parents around the world, what I notice is that, again, they're coming with the predominant beliefs, which I'm going to be talking about shortly. And those, again, that it makes it easy for them to react in ways that they don't want to and create more of what they don't want in their families and more of what they don't want with their children. And yet, they don't know how to do a different way. They have ideas like, well, I want to be more loving, or I want to be more patient, or I want to be more empathetic. And so they have desires and goals and intentions. And yet the difference between knowing what they want to do and being able to do it effectively, especially in challenging moments, which we all have with our children, we have in all our relationships, that's the gap. We can know what we want to do, and sometimes we can even know what to do, being able to effectively do that in the moment is the challenge for almost all of us, including me. So anyway, that's sort of the background. And I'm going to be talking today specifically about 4 things within this topic of why we parents lose our cool. First, I'm going to be talking about what is the predominant view of why we lose our cool. What's the dominant belief about why that happens. Second, I'm going to be talking about how that dominant belief creates unnecessary stress in our families and how it's handicapping us as parents in creating the relationships we want with our children. The third thing I'm going to explain is this new view. Again, I said it's not new, but this emerging view, this view that I hold, it's a view held by people like Byron Katie. It's more the view of Buddhist thought. So you'll recognize it when I talk about it, hopefully. And if not, cool, something new. That's exciting too. And the fourth thing I'm going to share is why this emerging way of thinking and understanding where our reactions come from is so significant, and how us as parents doing our work is critical to creating the kinds of relationships we want with our children. So those are the 4 things I'm going to talk about. I am going to pop back over to Facebook for a minute and see. Hey, Jody, I love that you're here. So feel free to pop in with questions as I go along. So, and thanks for sharing. I very much appreciate that. And everybody, thanks, Marianne. I'm glad you're here. So, okay, let me get into it. So the dominant cultural view. So why is it that parents lose their cool? If you want to type it in, I'll give you a minute. If you want to say, why do you think, and maybe it's not why you think, what do you think the dominant view is? Why do parents lose it when their children misbehave, so to speak? Hi, Shanda. I'm so glad you're here. We're already stressed out. Good point, Jody. Yeah, that is absolutely a piece of it. Do you know why we're already stressed out? Besides the obvious, like we're sleep deprived and we're doing so much and often too much. So why else are we stressed out? Good insight. All right. So I'm going to tell you what the dominant, it's what Jody's alluding to. Absolutely. So the dominant view is that the behavior, and in this case, I'm talking about our children's behavior because that's what I'm focusing on now, that it is their behavior that causes us to lose it. So when they don't listen, when they keep doing things that we've asked them not to do, when they are hitting their sibling, or when they're running out into the road. So it's their actions cause our upset, cause us to lose it. So that's the dominant cultural view. It's cause and effect. This thing that happened out there caused us to feel the way we feel. And I have another video about this, about can our children make us feel a certain way. So you might, if this is of interest to you, then, check that video out as well. It's over on my YouTube channel. But that's the dominant cultural view, is this thing happens that our children do, and then we lose it. So that is also, it's the same one that we see, that this other person is to blame. When they do it this way, then we react. So we tend to think about that when we hold that view, and almost all of us hold that at a deep level, an unconscious level, because that's the view that we were raised with. That's the view that we were parented with. And it's the dominant cultural view. So it's the water we swim in as human beings on planet Earth. And so because it's there and it permeates our planet as the dominant view, it is going to seep into our minds, even if we are consciously attempting to hold another view. Okay. So again, even if part of you says, well, I don't really believe that, part of you does, because again, it's what's in sort of your cellular memory. It's what has been your lived experience. And this is where we will say things like, when our children do things that, for example, we feel our feelings are hurt, right? We're like, oh, that really stung. And we'll say, things like, um, you know, talking mean, that hurts people's feelings, or that hurt my feelings, or that made me feel sad. It didn't. Hate to break it to us, but that's not what made us feel sad. So that's how we know that we have some of that thinking in us. And I'm going to share some of my personal examples in a little bit about how I go into this too, because again, I'm human and I have these same things pop up for me, even knowing what I know. So that's the dominant cultural view: is our children do what they do, and because they've done something, then we lose our patience with them. We blow our top. We react. Even if we contain it, our upset, our feelings about it, we still attribute to them having done what they did. So even if we're able to keep our cool exterior and not react, not yell, not spank, not shame, even if we do maintain that, if we are feeling upset inside, our dominant view is that our upset is caused by their behavior. So if you think that there's a different dominant cultural view, feel free to comment, and I'll check that out. That is my experience. That's, again, what I hear with parents all over the world, and it's what I see when I look out in the world, and it's what I experience too. I pay attention to, oh yeah, that's where I'm going. So that's the dominant cultural view, in my opinion. So you can already sort of see why this adds stress to families, but that's the second thing I want to talk about is, so why does this matter? I mean, who cares what dominant view or what view we have, right? Well, here's part of why it matters, is when our children do what they do, and we hold, again, unconsciously or consciously, we hold the belief that our upset is because of what they did, then we are creating, by that thinking, we are creating an adversarial relationship. So we are coming into our relationship with our child already skewed towards being on opposite sides, because we're saying they did that and therefore I had this reaction. We also do it in reverse. So people like to call it mom guilt. I don't think it's mom guilt. I think it's mostly mom shame. There's a big distinction between those. But when we do something that we don't like and our child reacts, often what we do, and dads have this too, but moms definitely personify this in so many ways, we then say the way they felt is my fault. So again, it's often not conscious. We just, oh, that way that they're feeling, that's because I did whatever. So it works in reverse. And so that, in my experience with parents and myself, that doesn't feel good and it's not helpful. It's like now we just added another heaviness onto ourselves that now we're trying to recover from that. Because, oh, what terrible parents are we? What terrible people are we that we just did that? So that then, again, instead of being on really like an equal footing with our children, then now in that case, now we're down here. We're down here because we really just screwed up. We're just such bad people. And that way of viewing ourselves skews our relationship in an unhealthy way as well. So let me add a couple caveats here. So, because some people will do this as well. They think, well, okay, Shauna, yeah, that sounds, reasonable. But here's my problem is I still don't want my child to do that thing that they do. And also I don't want to do this thing that I do with my child sometimes. So are you saying I should just be okay with that? No, I'm not saying that we can't still have our preferences about how our children behave and we can't communicate to them like, hey, here's what I'd like and here's what we'd like in our family. So no way am I saying you shouldn't have those or you have to, leave those desires behind. It's not what I'm saying at all. Nor am I saying that when you do something as a parent that you regret or you don't like that you did, that you should just say, whatever, it doesn't really matter. I didn't cause my child's upset. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you didn't cause your child's upset. And I'm saying if that doesn't work for you, the way you behaved, then yeah, work on it. Absolutely. So one doesn't negate the other. So I want to put those out there as caveats because I hear that from people sometimes. They're like, oh, well, you're just saying, you should let kids do whatever. No, not at all. And nor am I saying as parents, we have carte blanche to do whatever. Not what I'm saying. So as you can see, though, when we have this view of it's that behavior, that other person that caused us to do what we did, or on the flip side, what we did caused our child to react the way they did, we are adding stress that we don't need. We already have stress. We have natural stress, so we don't need more stress added into our family. So don't do this to yourselves. And that's why I want to share the third part in just a minute about what is the different view that we can take that is more healthy, more effective, and is going to be more helpful to us in creating the kind of relationships we want to have with our children. So again, it just adds stress. So that's the reason why that dominant view really doesn't work. And because it's not true, it's, we're in that wrong frame. And so now our approach is going to be skewed in the wrong direction. So the third piece I wanted to share today is what's this emerging view? What's the accurate view of what actually happens? Why do we actually lose our cool when our children do certain things? Okay, so here's the reason, is that when our children do what they do, we have our brain, and our brain is a meaning-making machine. So it, through our senses, it takes data, some of which is really accurate, like it looks out in the world and we see things and we take that in. You hear my voice, you take that in. But we also, as we now know from science, we know that we actually don't take in data in a completely objective way. We filter out. We each filter out based on our own life experience, our beliefs, and things like that. So we are not actually even taking in accurate information, completely accurate information, because our senses and our minds have already filtered out things that don't fit into the way we think. So it's amazing to go, yeah, so I'm not taking in the actual data that's coming out right now. I'm taking in what I'm able to absorb based on how I see the world and my life experience. So nonetheless, we take in the information, and our minds, as I said, are meaning-making machines. And so our mind is always giving us basically commentary on what should be happening, what other people should be doing, what we should be doing, what the world should look like, what we want to have happen, what we don't want. So it's all this processing goes on in the supercomputer of our minds. And we also have a whole set of beliefs that most of us are unaware of because they run at an unconscious level. There's no way we could, really function if we were aware of all our beliefs going on all the time. And I'm going to give some concrete examples, which I think will help really clarify this in a minute. But so we also have this full set of beliefs that we each come with. And so we have this set of beliefs that we already have. We have the interpretation that our minds are making based on our past experience, the setting, all the things that are going on. And so then we make up a story in our mind. And the condensed version, which I'm not always good at, I'm more of a talker than a condenser. The condensed version is that when reality, what our child is doing in the real physical world, when the reality matches and meets what we want to have happen and meets with the beliefs that we have about what should happen, what our child of that age and that gender and all those things should do and all that, then we don't react. We don't lose our cool because reality, so to speak, matches with what we think in our mind should be reality. Okay? So we don't react. We don't lose our cool. When our children are behaving in a way that is against what we think should happen, so they're doing X when our mind is saying they should be doing Y for a whole host of reasons, then we tend to lose our cool, either externally and we react, we yell or don't do that, whatever it is our specific behavior pattern is, or internally we feel the stress. We're like, this is not right. This is not what should be happening. So that's actually why we lose it, is because we are seeing out in reality something that does not match our picture of what is acceptable, what should be. Basically, it's like we're playing God in our minds, and we know how it should be, how we want it to be. And so when it's not, we react because we're like, don't like that. That's not okay. So I'm going to give concrete examples in a minute, and I see some things going on over on Facebook. So let me pop over there. I'm describing Fisher. If the behavior is repetitive and they aren't listening the first time. Yeah. So it's, again, I want to really clarify for everybody, because I don't want anybody to walk away and say, oh, Shawnee said that, you should just accept whatever anybody does all the time, everywhere. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the reaction that we feel, our discomfort, our dis-ease, is not a result of what's happening. It's a result of how we are interpreting and accepting or not accepting what's happening. And that's why I talked about, it's like the Buddhist thought. It's that attachment to, well, this should be this way. I shouldn't be in this situation. I shouldn't be in this traffic jam. This obviously is bigger than just our families, but so I shouldn't be in this traffic jam. I shouldn't be going through this with my child right now. Our government should be a certain way. Whatever it is, we could pick any part of life. That is where our reaction comes from. So it's not the external events. It's just not that. It's what's inside and what's going on. So let me share some examples from my own life to give you a glimpse into how this can play out in our parenting relationships. Okay, so first story I want to share is a couple nights ago. That's my bed back there. My daughter and I were sleeping together. She's 7. We were all sort of sick. My husband was the most sick, coughing and stuff. So he slept in her room. And so she and I were in here. And here's what happened, as best as I can tell you, because again, right, I did filter all the information. I'm telling you my perception of it, my experience. So we're in bed, lights are out. I'm ready to go to sleep. I've reached my time for mama to be asleep. And my daughter was not quite there. She was not totally ready to be asleep. And so I was gently just telling her, okay, it's time to go to sleep. Or I'd listen to a little bit of what she was saying. Then when she'd want to go on to something else, I'd say, let's talk about that tomorrow. It's time to sleep now. So I had been doing this gentle, yes, I get that's where you are. And honey, it's time to sleep. Honey, mama's tired. Honey, mama's not going to talk now. So what I noticed was that inside, I was starting to feel stressed. As I said to a mom I was talking to from California yesterday, I said, I was laying on the bed, but my energy was about a foot above the bed, my energy level, because I was starting to get worked up. I'm like, this is not what I want. I wish you'd be quiet. I wish you'd go to sleep. And so that's true. That's where I was at, right? So those wants were clashing with reality, right? So she's not being quiet. She's not falling asleep right at that moment. And so I could feel myself getting worked up. And here's some of the beliefs that were going on inside me that were contributing to my increased tension and my steaming tea kettle. That I didn't blow my top, but I could feel that's the direction my energy was going in. So some of my thoughts were, as I said, we'd all been sick, and one of my thoughts in the background was, she needs sleep. She needs more rest to get better. So that's a noble want, right? Like, I want my daughter to be better. Yay for me, right? So that's a noble want. However, I had that. I also had, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep now. Okay. So I'm packing these in, right? So these are the thoughts that are running in the background that I wasn't aware of at first. I also have the thought of whatever time it was, I don't remember now, but I had the thought of, it's too late. She should be asleep by now. She's not getting enough sleep. She was up late recently. So I had these other thoughts are getting packed in there. And all those are there running in the background. And again, reality is different, right? Reality is she's talking, she's not sleeping. And so I have these thoughts churning around inside me. Reality is at conflict with that. And so that's where my energy starts to rise. And thankfully, in this moment, I was able to catch myself. And I was able to realize I felt that energy going in a direction I didn't want it to go. And so all I did in that moment was I laid there in bed with my back to my daughter, curled over on my side. And I was breathing, and I was just aware. I was like, okay, I feel this energy is not going in a positive direction. That's all. I was like, yeah, I'm aware. I didn't know what the thoughts were at that time. Okay, energy's not going in a good direction. Breathe, relax. Breathe, relax. Reality is what it is. Breathe, relax. Just breathe. Reality is what it is. So I did my best using a very simple tool that we all have, that we're all actually using right now, breathing, but breathing in a way, breathing deep to help keep my neurologic system in a more responsive place, a more flexible, creative, adaptive place than cycling down into lower parts of my brain that tend to react, those fight, flight, or freeze parts of our brain. So I was settling myself into that human brain, like, okay, Shani, stay there. Don't degrade. Don't go down the slope. Breathe. And what I was able to do after probably 45 seconds, maybe a minute and a quarter, I was calm enough inside. She didn't know outside anything was going on, but I know she could feel my tension inside. And so I flipped over onto my other side, faced her, and I have an accent that I do with her when she's behaving in a way that I'm finding challenging for me. And so it's what I call a Jamaican accent, and she calls it the lady or Mrs. And I tease her and I'll call her a naughty monkey. So I turned over to her and I said, oh, you're such a naughty monkey. You so chatty monkey. Mama be sleepy, mama. Mama want to go to sleep. You chatty. And she starts to giggle, right? So I was venting some of my, stress. I was like, yeah, you're chatting, kid. You're driving me crazy, right? I'm doing it in a way, though, that's playful and light. It's not judging her. It's teasing in a way that is connecting versus, embarrassing or separating. And so in doing that, what actually happened was for about 2 minutes, she and I sort of went into this nutty monkey thing, and she said, oh, you so mad? And I was like, oh, no, I'm not mad. I'm just very, very tired. Mama, very tired. You go sleepy monkey now. Time to go sleepy monkey. And, so we're laughing. And so what happens in that moment is a couple things. My stress gets some dissipation, right? So I don't have to take it out on her. It just vents in its own natural way. I get to connect with her, which does a couple things. It helps her be more receptive than to my request to, hey, hun, it's time to go to sleep now. Because now we're connected. We're really engaged with each other. So that laughter, the way of coming at her in that way, it's really more coming alongside her rather than at her. That's the way we tend to, when we react, we come at somebody in this direct, forceful, way that pokes at them, really. And I was really coming alongside her, like, okay, here's your reality, talky, talky, chatty, chatty. I'm coming up alongside it and being like, okay, I get that's how it is right now. Mama's not so fun with this. But now I'm alongside her. And when you come alongside your child, again, easier for them to be receptive to what you are actually asking. But you also reestablish that connection that is where the cooperation comes from, where the willingness to partner and hear each other comes from. And so it's a way of actually re-engaging your child, in this case, in being on the same team with you and you being on their team. So instead of having that adversarial role that I talked about at the beginning, where when we have the dominant worldview that her talking was causing my upset, that puts us, it's hard to do on the camera here, but that puts us at polar opposites, right? We're at opposites. But when I come alongside her, now we're together, so we can more easily take action in a uniform way versus more of this, which is what we tend to create when we don't catch ourselves like I was able to. And so in 2 minutes, literally, we laughed some, we played some, and that was it. And she went to sleep within like 30 seconds after that. And I was like, oh yeah, it works, yay. And yes, it was part of what I did. That's true. And a large part of it, though, was from what I didn't do, which was I didn't allow my mind to take over and make the reality wrong. I was able to go, reality is what reality is. So that's how, when we take this other view of it's what's going on up here that leads us to react in a negative way, so to speak, then we're able to work with ourselves more. And a lot of people talk about it, self-control. I think it's more self-awareness, to know, something's going on in me here. Something over here is getting wonky and whacked out. And then from there, rather than controlling ourselves, being able to actually understand some of what's going on in our mind and keep our mind from sort of coloring the situation. It's that, to me, it's different. It's like I'm not really self-control. I'm keeping my mind more I was going to say caged. I don't like that idea. What's the word I want to use? I'm keeping it from, again, losing control and saying, well, it should be this way. I'm saying, no, mind, that's what you want. I got it. That's what your concerns are. That's what your fears are. That's what you're believing right now. It's okay. You can chill. So it's really sort of about getting our mind to relax and accept that reality is what reality is. So let me pause again. Hey, I love seeing so many of you here. Thank you so much. Hey, Pete. So if you have, sorry about that. I'm trying to scroll through some things. Thanks, Ross. Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate you all sharing. And I'm sorry for the asynchronous nature of this. It's just, I have to come back and forth between Zoom and Facebook. But so it's, again, in no way saying, Shawnee, you should have been okay with her talking. You should be okay to stay up later than you physically feel able to do. You should, not worry about her health. No, it's not saying any of that. It's saying that I can have those thoughts, and yet I want to be as mindful as I can about, are those thoughts causing me to react in a way that I don't want to react? And if they are, then that's not working. So it's a distinction that may seem subtle on the one hand, like, oh, what does it matter? But I can tell you from, again, the parents I coach and work with, that making this shift it takes a lot of the stress out, which is a big piece for all of us. And then what it does is, as we start to become more and more aware of what are those thoughts, what are those beliefs that we have that are not serving us, that lead us into sort of routine conflict with the people in our lives. And I may talk about some more of that in a minute. But then we get to really start to see what are those pieces within us that we have control of, because that's the critical piece in my mind. In our dominant cultural view, our normal approach is fix that person over there so that I can be happier, calmer, more peaceful, feel more loved, whatever you want to put on that. But it's fix them over there so I can be okay. And it doesn't work that way because we have no power. I have no power over my daughter. Now, I go into old parenting paradigms sometimes and I think, oh yeah, I do. So I'm human, but literally I have no power over her. Just like I don't have power over any of you. I don't have power over my husband. Sometimes I don't even have power over myself. So, but that idea is that, it's out there. If we just fix that, then I'd be okay. Really a bad use of our energy because we have no power over there. So it's big waste of our time. What is effective is to work on our part. The other piece about that, when we work on our part, when our part shifts, like I didn't do anything to my daughter the other night. I didn't say at that point, you should stop talking. I was playing. We were engaged. I was doing no directing at that point. And yet she modified her behavior. Her behavior changed in part because my behavior changed. So I put my power where the only place it resides, which is with me. I did something differently. And because of that, it's not cause and effect, but it's just the way things work is that, yes, when I do it differently, sorry, my hair is bugging me there. When I do it differently, her piece is also going to change. It's just the way it's like if you're dancing with somebody and they start dancing differently, you're going to dance differently. You're not trying to, it's just that's what's going to happen. So let me share a story briefly on a time when I did not catch myself and show you the contrast of how it works. Although you all have had lived experience, so you know it, but I'm going to share another story. So this was probably when my daughter was about 3.5. I had mopped, she was at preschool during the day, and I had just swept, we have wood floors, I'd swept all the floors, moved furniture up on top of tables and things, swept, and then mopped. And it looked so good. I loved, it smelled good. I was like, oh, yay, clean floor. I was really excited about that. And I had worked really hard to do it. So I was glad to have it. And also like, hey, I worked hard to get this. My daughter, when she got home from school, she wanted some toast with butter. And she was at a phase at that point where her bread had to be cut a certain way, buttered a certain way, all that. And I know you all can relate to that too. And as she came home and she's really, directing me about do this, do that. And I'm starting to feel tension rising in me, but I didn't really notice it. I just was like, argh. So my awareness was pretty low at that moment. And so we're going in this back and forth, and I am getting more and more amped up internally. So fast forward to, I take the plate of toast over to her. Well, she doesn't like something about it. And so she ends up throwing the toast on the floor. Of course, it lands butter side down on my newly mopped floors, right? And now, of course, now it seems silly. I'm like, oh, I can laugh about it. At the moment, though, I was incensed. I was so angry with her because what was happening in my mind was she's doing something that she shouldn't be doing. I had these other beliefs that are some old beliefs, but these were also running in the background. So I had, I work really hard. People should appreciate me. I wanted to appreciate myself, right? And so also one of the ways sometimes I get stuck is I expect other people to do the appreciation rather than me just saying, awesome job, Shawnee, you mopped the floor, it looks great. I'm expecting, in a very demanding way, other people should give me that acknowledgement, that positive feedback. So when they don't, and when they, throw their buttered bread on it, it's like I interpret that, my brain interprets that, my mind interprets that as a real slap in my face, right? So can you see where all those beliefs, they're jammed up over there and running in the background without me being aware of it? Those are complete contrast, right, to reality. So, well, maybe not complete contrast because she threw the bread on the floor, but I basically am like, this reality, her doing what she's doing, is not okay. And what I did, because I didn't catch myself, is I went over to her as, in the kitchen, and came across, forcefully took the bread and sort of slammed it back on her plate. And then she was in her stocking feet, and I took one of her feet and I wiped it into the butter, to ostensibly to get the butter up. But I know very well that that was not the only energy behind my action. I was definitely in a sense of like, I'll show you to do that, kid. And it makes me heartsick. I hate that that's the way I did it. And yet that's what happened. I lost my cool big time because I did not notice and catch early enough that my mind was running a con job. Basically, it's running me rather than me being in a place of mindful awareness. I can still not like it. It's totally okay to be like, yeah, I don't really like that. But because I didn't catch my mind revving up, I then downcycled in my brain and I went to a forceful, reactive place that is not the way I want to be with my daughter. Thanks. So this happened the other day and you came at rather than caging or containing my mind. Yeah, having a strategy ready like this will help me next time. Yay. Yay. I'm so glad I'm speaking your language. You're speaking mine too. So thanks for commenting, Ross. And tell me if it's Ross or Roz. I like to pronounce things correctly. So let me know that too. But it's that piece. It's like, and I'm still going to do that. Again, even knowing what I know, there are going to be times when I am not going to catch myself. I'm not going to have that level of self-awareness, whether it's in part because I'm overtired or I haven't been taking care of my fundamental needs, whatever's going on, those are all going to impact it as well. The bottom line, though, is that that's where our power lies. That's where we want to change, because most of us, let me clarify that. What I find a lot of parents do, and nothing wrong with this, is again sort of reflects the dominant culture, is we see the behaviors that our children do, especially ones they do repetitively, that we find annoying, that we don't like, that we want to see change. And we look for, what is the thing to do to get them to stop doing that? And so we look for techniques and tools. And those are valuable and important. So I do believe in having those. I teach my clients tools as well. So that's important. However, if we only do the techniques and tools and we don't ever, or we rarely come over here and say, what is up here in me that makes me prone to react? That's why every parent's different, right? Like you have a couple and you're like, why does one parent get really upset about behavior X and the other one's unfazed? Because they have different belief systems. They have different life experience. So that's why we know it's not about the behavior. It's about the way we interpret it, the way we think about it. So going back to what I was saying, I digress, which I do a lot. So if you watch me, you're used to that. If this is new, that's what I do. So if we only look for technique, tool, what can I do to change my child's behavior, and we don't come over and say, what's in me that easily reacts to these things, easily gets triggered, maybe even easily sort of primes certain situations to happen. I may talk about that in a minute. If we don't ever look at that part, that's going to keep existing. So whether it's our child or some other person or people or life events, those things that that we get triggered by are going to keep happening, because part of what life is wanting for us is to understand that, we have some stinking thinking, a mentor of mine used to say. So we have some things that are not serving us to address. And so that to me is one of those critical pieces of, it's both and. You can't just do techniques, or you can, go ahead. But if you just do techniques, though, you're going to have a piece over here that's not going to get addressed effectively, and therefore is going to be ready to keep getting poked and triggered and come up in a way that you're not going to like. And this is the place, our stuff is the place most of us are more reluctant to go. Therapists can work with you on it. A coach like me can work with you on it. It's not all super deep stuff. There's some really universal things, like I would say beliefs that you might have right now that you may or may not be aware of that aren't serving you, is that as a parent, is that the way your child shows up in the world is a reflection of the quality of the parenting you provide, and even more so is a reflection of you. So I think that's a belief that doesn't serve you. I think another belief that you could have that does not serve you is that you have to do everything right. It's a really common one. I'm a recovering perfectionist and recovering people pleaser, so I know I have that one. But I think many, many people have that one because, again, it's another dominant cultural belief, that we should get everything right. We're not allowed to screw up. We're not allowed to be human. And again, that comes from our own upbringing and the larger culture. So I think that's another belief you might have that's not serving you. I think another belief that doesn't serve us as parents is that, how would I phrase this? We have to teach our children how to behave. I think that's old paradigm thinking that views children as more heathens, that they're these untamed wild savages, and that part of what adults' jobs, parents' jobs is to weed those things out, to tame those things out of them. And I'm not saying we don't have things to teach our children that have to do with healthy interactions. But frankly, if you ask me, look around the world, and I'm not sure we adults have a lot to teach about healthy interactions based on what I see going on a lot of the place. So it's like, I don't know, we're very good teachers about that anyway. But that's a common mindset. It's like, I have to do this thing so my child will learn this thing. I think there's also a belief around that at some fundamental level, we don't actually trust our children. And I say that because I've seen it myself. I see it in other parents where it can contribute to the helicopter parenting idea. But it's also ties into the other thing about somehow I've got to teach them. It's like they won't learn simply through living in the world that there are some ways of being in relationship that work more smoothly than others. It's like we don't trust that they will eventually learn it. They might not learn it today. They might not learn it in a year. They will eventually learn that. And so when we have that belief of sort of lacking trust in our children's natural ability to grow and develop, then what I see with families I work with is there's more stress that we put on ourselves as parents. It's like one more, it's like, let me have one more to do on my list. And so it's like, we don't need more to-dos. So that's another belief. So those are a few that I can think of off the top of my head. Let me pop over again to Facebook. Hey, Kathy. Gina, I love it. So yeah, hard to get the answer, what's in me? Yeah, it can be. It can be. So especially in the moment. So like I said with my examples, I did not know the other night, and you may or may not have heard this part, Gina, but I did not know um, what the beliefs were when my daughter was not wanting to go to sleep. I didn't know what was actually running in my mind. What I was aware of was my energy. And so I could feel it in certain parts of my body that I'm aware of that are my markers of sort of antecedents leading into anger or to a reaction that I don't want to do. So I'll feel pressure in my chest. I hear in my head um, a sort of shrill, harsh voice. Um, I notice that I have this just sort of constricted energy. It's like I'm trying to have a bowel movement and I'm really, forcing it. So I know y'all don't want to know that information, but it's that kind of, so all I knew was that's what was in me. I didn't know those beliefs. I found those later. So even if you don't know what's in you, don't worry about that at the moment. What you want to start practicing is becoming more and more aware of how do you behave? What are your, because these are like habitual, you've been doing these since you were, well, you can't see it, little, since we were our children's age. So we've been doing these things. Some of you know, I talk about one of my behaviors is control. I've never called it control freak, but I was just about to. So apparently it's control freak. I normally call it drill sergeant. My husband's probably laughing if he's watching this because he'll be like, yeah, control freak. That's what it is. I definitely go into when I start to feel insecure, uncomfortable. One of my go-to unhealthy behaviors is to try and get it all under control. And, I'll tell you what to do and I'll tell you what to do. And if you just listen to me, people, it'd be okay. Not usually, but that's what I do. So if I know that to start, then I want to back up from there. Okay, so what comes before that? What comes before I start barking out orders? Oh, I feel this thing in my throat. I feel a constriction there, or I feel something in my chest, or I feel this energy just buzzing all through my body. So that's where you want to use some self-reflection. A great tool that you can use right now is you can just check in with how am I feeling right now? What's going on? So I'm going to shut up for a minute, stop talking. And everybody who's out there, if you want to, you don't have to share, just take about 15 seconds and see if you can notice where you feel energy in your body, what kind of energy you feel, if you have thoughts running. Just, I'll be quiet and let's do that. So just notice what you notice. Again, you don't have to share with me. It's that kind of practice. You can do that throughout your day. You can set a timer on your watch to go off every hour and just, oh, okay, that's my self check-in time. Where am I at? What am I believing? What's going on in me? And just for me, just to give you a quick example, like I noticed that I had some energy up here, and the thought that popped up, I had oh my gosh, I hope I'm doing okay. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I just observed it. That's, meditative, yogi type practice where you observe. Like, I don't have to judge it and say that's good or I should or I shouldn't. It's just, oh, that's interesting. I feel some energy here and I have this thought pop up. I hope I'm doing okay. Now, I might later on want to examine that if I want to, like, what's that come from? I can tell you where it comes from. I know for me, again, recovering perfectionist people pleaser, some part of me still wonders, worries, is concerned about what are you out there thinking about me? That's old stuff. And so I can notice it in that moment, just go, oh, that's there. Okay. And so that self-reflective practice, I'd encourage all of you to do, whether you're a parent or not, and you just happen to, hear me prattling away here on Facebook, take that time throughout the day to be in conversation with yourself. What's going on? What's alive in you? What is there that is helping you to see what are you needing in the moment? What are you yearning for? what are maybe some things that are happening that could use some attention? Um, so if you want to talk some more about this, I could go on and on and on, as y'all can tell. Those of you who've stuck with me for a while, thank you. I just love this. I love to engage in these kind of conversations um, and talk, because to me, again, that's where the huge shifts take place. The more I know and understand about myself as a person, the more I am able to be with myself through whatever life brings me, not just with my daughter, but with my husband, with politicians, with world events. I can not be ruled by them. I can be at a conscious choice about how am I going to be with this thing that's happening right now. And as you've seen from my examples, sometimes I'm going to catch it. I'm going to be able to keep my mind, soothed and like, hey, mind, it's okay. I get you're making up stories and you're doing that. And, just it's all right. You don't have to do anything. And sometimes I'm going to totally miss it. And I'm going to lose my temper. I'm going to react in a way that I don't want to. I'm going to pull out some old behaviors that are, really tried and tested. So there's not perfection here. There's no like, you have to do it this way. It's that what I find in terms of having a much more enjoyable life experience, the more I'm able to work on my piece, the more I experience that daily bliss, that sense of ease, that sense of connection with my daughter, the more I respond rather than react. And by that, I mean responding in a way that I want to respond, like doing the naughty monkey thing and playing with her and getting out our stress so we can go to sleep, versus reacting and yelling at her or being pissed off at her because she's not sleeping and I want her to. Because I don't want to cause that disconnection in my relationship with her. She is the most important person in my life. And so to me, I am committed to doing everything I can to work on my part, because that's where the power is. That's where it makes the most difference. And also, it sets a model that I want her to have. I don't want her to grow up with the mindset that I did where, oh, that person over there caused me this. It's not healthy and it doesn't work. So I want her to see in my model and the way my husband and I work with her that, yeah, you know what? That was us. That was over here on our side. So I'm going to go over to Facebook in just a minute again and check in. What I want to say too is if this has resonated with you today, I'd love to invite you. I'm doing a free webinar next Wednesday, so just under a week, Wednesday, December 6th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'm emphatic because last week I told people something was at late for me, and it's a.m. in the morning. So you can find that on, let me just give you the URL. If you want to join that webinar, basically the webinar is specifically on 3, quote, misbehaviors that our children do: aggressive behavior, not listening, and not following our direction. And those 3 behaviors, how we as parents can respond in a more peaceful, effective way when our children engage in those behaviors. Because those are 3 behaviors that I find that most parents are like, yeah, I'd like less of those. So the URL, if you want to join that free webinar, is bit.ly, B as in boy, it.ly/no more misbehaving. So no more misbehaving, no G on the end, not behaving, just behaving. So I'd love to have you join, because we're going to be talking more about this kind of stuff. So let me go over to Facebook. Oh, you like the example with the toast. Oh, thanks. Gina, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so let me respond, because there's a couple questions. Awesome. Oh, I'm so grateful, Gina. So Gina, you said, I guess everybody can see it, but I'm going to repeat it. So you've been getting better at noticing my energy in the moment before it's too late with my daughter since being a part of this group. Oh, yay. And doing everything that you can to work on in your part. Yeah, thank you. And that's what I love about the parents I work with. It's like, yeah, we know there's things we want to help our children learn and develop. Absolutely. And yet we are also really willing to dig in there and go, oh, okay, what can I do differently? What can I change up? So let me look. So Kate, you had a question. So after you feel those feelings, but you're still in this situation, how do you respond? Great question. And I say there's not a universal answer. What I find for myself is that, and Kathy, I see your question. I'll respond to that too in a minute. What I find is that the more effective I am at noticing where I'm at, what I'm feeling, and being with it. It's sort of like we attempt to do with our children, right? We give them empathy. So it's like when I do that with myself, and I'm going to close my eyes because it helps me think about this for a minute. So when okay, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I notice, I can be with that. And what happens for me personally is that in that state, I'm more calm and more open. And because I've stayed up in my human brain, what I'm able to do is access those parts of my more human brain, the executive function, the creativity, the problem solving, the empathy, the ability to really see and understand and feel another's experience, that I'm able to do that. And it's natural. So it's almost like, that's why I can't answer and tell you, well, this is what you do. How do you respond? I find that when I listen and I'm with myself and present, that the response naturally comes. So it's less of a rehearsal and then more of an impromptu response that is more aligned with how I want to show up in the world and what my true values are, and not my ego or that that part of my mind that's judging. So Kate, tell me if that's meets your needs for a response there. But that's what I would say in general. So Kathy, yeah, if we can't catch the webinar live, can we watch it? Can we catch it on our own after? Yes. So yes, absolutely. So it is, I think you participated. It's the same one I did November 21st. Oh, good, Kate. Thank you. I'm glad that was helpful. Same one I did on November 21st. So if y'all went to that one, you've already seen it. It's the exact same one. And if you were registered for that one, I sent you a link to the recording. So know that it's the exact same one. But yes, if this is totally new to you and you register, but you can't make it, then yes, I will send you a link to the recording afterwards. So I think that answers your question, Kathy. Anybody else? Gina, I don't know if there was anything else, any questions you had. I'm just looking down there. Yeah, we can't control our children. Although I'll tell you that, I still try and do it because I'm human and I forget. So Ross, I think. Okay. Okay. Yay, Kathy. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. 7 a.m. is early for us in the West, on the West. Yes, it is. I will be, my plan right now, folks, don't guarantee this, but right now my plan is also to do a webinar, the same webinar, another evening time one on the 13th of December. So, and that will be a later time that will be more amenable. Not so good for me in my my way of thinking, but better for folks on the West Coast. Okay. Well, I'm looking at the clock, and I have a person to meet with here soon. So, oh, good, Gina. I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I love for you to be there. So, for everybody, thank you for commenting. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for listening to me talk and talk and talk. I hope it was helpful. And again, if you have questions, if you're watching, sorry about that, moving everything here. If you're watching the recording, and you have some questions that I didn't address or that come up, please feel free to comment. Please feel free to share my videos. I am always looking for more parents who are on this consciousness wavelength because, as I said, I am about making really seismic culture change, and I can't do it by myself. I can do my part. So any of you who want to do your part alongside me, let's work on it together. You can find me in my Facebook group, the Conscious Moms Circle. I also have a YouTube channel where I've got, I don't know, 30, 35 videos, some like this that are longer, some are shorter. So you can look me up there, Shawnee Lavender Coaching. What else do I want to say? I'm here most Thursdays doing Facebook Lives about this time. So if you have nothing better to do and want to join me, I love that. And like I said, I've got a free webinar next week, December 6th. It's called Banish the Misbehavior Blues, and we'll be talking specifically about peacefully and effectively responding to our children when they are behaving in an aggressive way, when they're not listening, or when they are not following our direction. So you can find that and register at bit.ly/no-more-misbehaving. You can look me up here on Facebook. It's on my page too, Shawnee Lavender. And let me see, I have one more comment. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Samara. I really appreciate you sharing. So yeah, look me up, look up Shawnee Lavender Coaching. I love likes. I like loves, all that stuff. So please engage with me some more. It's really my deep pleasure to be with folks like you on these Thursdays because it really gives me a lot of peace for the future of our world. And I get really excited knowing that there are so many of us out there that are doing these kind of things and creating different, more loving, connected, respectful relationships. And so it's really my honor to be here with you today. So I'm going to sign off, and please feel free to comment if you're just catching this now. Thanks for being with me, and I wish you a really, really wonderful day. Bye now.